Hello, everyone. Welcome to another segment of the B2B Sales Mastery Summit. My guest today is Monique Russell. Monique is an executive coach, leadership guru, communications expert. She is the founder of Clear Communication Solutions LLC. Her topic today on the summit is the diversity mindset, multicultural awareness, and communications in B2B sales. I'm pleased to have Monique to come share her experiences and how we can leverage diversity, inclusion, and how to use our communication skills to achieve B2B sales in a diverse business environment. So, with that said, Monique, welcome to the summit.
Thank you for having me, Chi. It's a pleasure to be here to share and talk about the diversity mindset and our self-awareness. I'm looking forward to sharing some good tidbits.
Fantastic. Glad to have you on the program today. And given the fact that we've had a bit of technical difficulties, I'm glad that you're still sticking around to do this and you're a good sport about it. So, Monique, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got on this journey to becoming a sales expert, a communication speaker, and also someone who's leveraging, or should not, I wouldn't say leveraging, but I would say more of like using diversity and cultural awareness to bridge the gap in business environments.
Okay, so I wouldn't really put that sales expert cap on 100.
Okay.
So, but definitely in the space of communications and leadership skills building, that is definitely the playground that I play in.
Mm-hmm.
And my journey, I guess a little bit about me is that I am originally from the beautiful islands of the Bahamas and also Nigeria on my dad's side. And for as long as I can remember, from the age of 5, I've always been fascinated and interested in communications in some form or fashion. So presentations, performances, things like that. And I thought that I would go off to school, become an international journalist, and just be reporting stories all over. So life really didn't happen that way. And after I completed my education, I found it extremely difficult and challenging to land my dream job. I think I applied probably to over 100 jobs, and I just couldn't find that right fit. What came back to me was way below, any sort of starting salary for me to take care of myself. And I had already racked up bills and student loans, so that was definitely not an avenue for me. But I started in actually executive support.
Okay.
I didn't want to be there, because I was like, I didn't go to school for this. I didn't go to school for this. But in retrospect, I look at it and I have learned that it was a hands-on practical experience for me because I was able to see what made leaders good and what made them great and what build relationships. And I would often be asked for advice, which was perfect because I had the background anyway and I had the training. So I was able to jump in and give advice on employee engagement, connecting with others, building internal communications, external communications, all just from that experience. And so through the journey of life, I remember at a point in time, I think I had just shortly moved to California, and I learned that, I needed to start my own freelance career. And I didn't start it with any intention that I was going to be a business owner, to be honest. I just started freelancing on the side, and I was doing everything and anything that looked and smelt like communications. And I learned also from that you have to be able to know what you're going to focus on, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and narrow it all the way down. So I tell people that I don't have the textbook story where I said I'm going to start a business. I'm going to go ahead and just, this is my path. This is my dream. My path was up, down, around the corner, sideways, leftways. And I arrived to this place where I have had enormous amount of experience in the field of communications across industries. So in government spaces, in healthcare spaces, and also in higher education, where I taught communications at the university level for about 7+ years, all while doing my side hustle. That's what they call it these days, right? So here I am. Just recently, in recent years, I have focused completely on interpersonal and intrapersonal communications because I believe that it is our duty and our job to enhance our self-awareness so that we can have positive and productive relationships at work and at home. So my clients, they are from many different walks of life, many different areas of expertise. And I often find that they're winning successfully in their professional life, and then the home life suffers, or it could be the reverse. And I feel especially connected to this because there were a lot of times when I was growing up and I felt like I didn't have that connection. I didn't feel as though I had belonged. And so part of my journey is connected to my own personal story to help people and teach leaders and their organizations how to have productive and positive relationships with using effective communication tools. And so today, when we're talking about diversity and cultural awareness and mindset, it's a timely topic because things are changing.
Yes, they are. Yes,
Things
they
are
are.
changing.
And that's why I wanted you to come and speak to this issue, because I know for a fact that, especially when someone is trying to connect and make a sale from company to company, it's very difficult if you don't try to step in the other person's shoes, because now we live in a global world. Everybody has international diverse experience that you are speaking next to. You're speaking in front of a Caucasian person and you're black. That Caucasian person could.
Yeah, and so I am just so grateful to talk about this topic because I feel it's very, very timely. I think that it is a must have in the 21st century. As you mentioned, things are changing, and I like to focus on the awareness piece, making sure that you have that awareness. And when I say awareness, I always like to use this example of a dinner party. Like you're at this dinner party and you're having a great time with your friends, and someone calls you on the phone and they say, your house is on fire, or someone's trying to break into your home, right? So what are you going to do at that moment? Are you going to just sit down and continue to have fun? Or are you going to decide to do something different? And whatever that decision is, you might call your neighbor and say, go ahead and check on this for me, or you might call the police, or you might decide to actually go yourself and check on the situation. So it's all about the power of awareness, because awareness gives us the choice and the ability to do something different. When it comes to our sales presentations, when it comes to connecting with others in the workplace, we have to keep this in mind. So at the end of our conversation today, you're going to have some awareness, and what you choose to do with that awareness is obviously going to be up to you. But the landscape has changed. The landscape has changed. We work with individuals all over the globe. And we do it in virtual forms. We do it in many, many different mediums. We're now in a place where we have 5 generations in the workforce, and we have to find ways to communicate with all of those generations. So generation is one thing, but then personality is also another. And now we added the layer of the culture as well. And a lot of times when we're talking about cultural beliefs, cultural practices, cultural norms, cultural values, you don't see that right at the top. Those are the things that are underneath the surface. But what you see are the behaviors. You see the behaviors that are exhibited, but you don't really understand what's driving those behaviors. However, as a sales professional, it is your job to find out. You absolutely must be intentional to learn about the different cultures that are in your organization, different people that are around you, because you want to know how people behave so that you can make a deeper connection and have a long lasting relationship. So I'll just, for example, if you look at cultural changes as well in general, you look at the importance of television, you look at the importance of social media. Social media has outranked television. So thinking in terms of social selling, right? The way people find you, the way people research you, they drop your name in Google. That's what I do. I do that. And so I'm sure you do that as well. So think about how things have changed in the way we do business. And if you're not able to adapt and be flexible, you're just going to get left behind. If you have decided that, you know what, I'm sticking with pay phones. I'm walking around with a bunch of quarters in my pocket because I'm looking for pay phones to make telephone conversations. But now everybody's using a cell phone. So guess what? You are going to be left behind. When it comes to cultural diversity, mindset of diversity, we're not just talking about race, religion, we're talking about understanding multiple layers, and it also includes understanding yourself, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to tell you about an example because I had someone reach out to me on LinkedIn and he wanted to get help with leadership development and people management support. He had already seen what I wrote. He saw my stuff. He researched me, and he was ready to make contact. He made contact. We had a great conversation. Same in the same form you reached out to me. I mean, we're talking because of LinkedIn. Let's put it out there. It's a powerful tool.
Yeah.
So we had that conversation, and then we had an in-person meeting. And in that in-person meeting, I got to see his team. I got to see his environment, the way he was working. And we went down, we had a conversation. And then he was telling me about his family. He told me about his beliefs, where he came from, how he grew up, why he started his business, and all of these other things that were very important to him. Now, I'm here in the US. I'm also on I have an action-taking personality, but I am a communications professional. So I recognized that it was important for him to tell me all about his family, his beliefs. I mean, the agenda completely was just focused on that. So when I recognized that, I realized that he also wanted to get to know me, from a personal level too. And he's not from the United States, though he's living in the United States. He's actually from a country that has a high context culture, right? So high context culture where there's, focused on a lot more of implicit meaning, where you have to figure out what's really going on as opposed to someone giving you direct information where, in the United States or in Canada where you are, those are examples of low context culture where we just get down to business. Let's just talk about what we're doing, what are our goals, what are you expecting? And so at that first meeting, that's really all we talked about. Yeah. We didn't even talk about anything. Now, if I were irritated, if I were annoyed, and I just wanted to just move straight into what my perspective or my view is, I would have lost that connection. I would have lost that connection. So it's important for you to be mindful of that. Now, over the course of, I would say 2 months, we met 3 times. Each time I went in there, we met, and it was important for him to build that trust. He needed to build that trust before we could even talk about business. So when I went in there, one of the things that I did before I went to do his research was I asked about his reputation in his industry. Because, of course, our clients, our prospective clients, we're going to research them as well if we want to do a good job. So I went ahead and I researched his information and I sent it out to a couple of people and I said, you know what? What do you think about this business? What have you heard about this business? And I got words like pushy, salesy, aggressive. And mind you, this person's organization, 90% of his business is driven by sales. Sales is an absolute must. It's an absolute necessity for his business. But his reputation in the market was already in the mud. Nobody's going to run around and tell you that your business reputation is bad. They're just going to talk behind your back. They're not going to recommend you. They're not going to refer you. And you're going to be wondering why it's so difficult and why it's so hard for you to close deals. So there's a multi-focus or a multi-purpose aspect of this, where you have to make sure that you understand how this is impacting your business. It's not just enough for you to say, okay, This is my belief, this is my view, this is my culture, this is how I handle things in my company. I told you by the time I went back the third time, I had seen uh, it was 2 months, I had seen 3 different people in the receptionist space. They had already, they left. And that is the difference of what we're facing today, because people have choices. So even though his culture, it was very hierarchical and, very dominating, do as I say, not as I do, talk, to the employees, not with the employees, even though he was from this culture, he was still using his practices here, and it just wasn't working for his employees. And these days, people will just leave. They'll just leave. And you find yourself stuck. So when your cultural position or posturing is so rigid and it's so unflexible, it is going to impact you not just from losing your employees or losing a prospective client. And by the way, we actually never made that relationship an official, a professional relationship. I mean, we lose prospective clients all the time, right? It happens. We lose employees all the time. But like I said, the biggest thing was not even that he lost a prospective client or he lost a employee. The biggest thing was his reputation. His reputation was just diminished. And when your reputation is diminished in the marketplace for being pushy, being aggressive, being salesy, all these words that people told me when they heard his business name, when your business has this type of negative brand and you're not big enough to bounce back from that, you will die.
Yes.
Period. You will die, because you think about the big brands and you think about the crises that they go through. You can remember Starbucks, the Starbucks example. They're big enough to bring in their PR folks, to bring in their communications team. They're big enough to go off of their previous branding, but then also when they were able to do this, they were able to bounce back. But if your organization doesn't have that, if your organization isn't as big and you don't have that much brand equity, you're going to struggle. So you can teach your sales employees, you can be a sales leader, you can be a sales professional or a sales executive, and you can give them all the scripts, you can give them the tools, the technology tools, the follow-up strategies, you can give them everything. And maybe they go out there and they bring in a client, they win a client, they lose a client, they win a client, they lose a client, they win a client, they lose a client. That's okay. That's the cycle of life. But if you're losing clients based on a lack of cultural awareness and a lack of diversity, you don't get a second chance. And once your brand starts circulating as someone that can't connect, that's someone that is so rigid, that's someone that is so just not with the times, now what are you going to do? You're spending all this money teaching your sales employees and your sales professionals how to do sales, but no amount of money that you're pouring into them is going to prevent you from a brand disaster. You need to start thinking about how are you going to put measures in place to make sure that your brand stands the test of time, because we've already seen it in the times that we live right now. When you have a big blow to your brand, my goodness, you lose money, you lose fame, you lose credibility, you lose relevancy instantly. Your last week's news. It's going to be time to find another business. So I want to just give you that foundation to let you know that this is just not something that we're talking about or we're saying, oh, it's trendy. It's trendy. It's not just trendy. It's actually something that will impact you in the long run. The best way for you to begin to make sure that you are, I wouldn't say bulletproofing your brand, but enhancing your communications, is to start with yourself. Enhance your self-awareness. Enhance your awareness, period. So the more you work on getting trainings, and of course we can't go into everything here now, this is what I would do in a 4-hour training. You want to work on your self-awareness. The more you understand yourself, the better and easier it is for you to have empathy for others, for you to be able to see that they're coming from a different vantage point, for you to be able to position your messaging and position your approach. And instead of saying, I got to get this number in, I got to get this number in, are you going to close or what? Are you going to follow up or what? Are you going to make a decision or what? You know, you will be able to now look at it from the lens that, you know what, I'm dealing with someone in a high context culture. It's important for them to build a relationship with me before we even get to talk about business. And then when you learn more about their culture and you try to speak the language, and not literally the language, but the language of the custom or the language of the way that business is done, you are communicating respect. You're communicating respect, and who doesn't like to be respected? I've never met a person that has complained about, I'm just getting too much respect. No, they say they don't respect me enough, I'm leaving. I'm quitting this job, I'm quitting this marriage, I'm quitting this business. Nobody's respecting me. So if you can master this one piece, man, you're already putting yourself at a competitive advantage. Okay, so enhancing your self-awareness, start with yourself.
I have a quick question before we move on. When you say enhancing your self-awareness, for somebody listening to this thinking, okay, that makes sense, Monique, but what are some tangible things I can do to enhance my self-awareness? Because I don't want to assume that I'm already self-aware or I naturally have the ability to do it. Can you help me along and show me what I can do?
Absolutely. But again, I will just lay and set the expectation that what I'm going to give you is not going to be a magic pill. Right?
Yes.
So when I talk about enhancing your self-awareness, one of the best things that I would say or suggest to start with is understanding your personality by doing a personality assessment. And one of the tools that I use in my practice is DISC. Now, the personality assessment is the beginning of a conversation. It is not the end all of a conversation because it doesn't measure your values. It doesn't measure your culture. It doesn't measure your motivations. It basically gives you an indication on how you're naturally wired and how you prefer to communicate when you're in a relaxed state, how you communicate when you're in a stressed or tensed state, but it's a beginning conversation. Anyone that tells you that take this test and oh my God, your sales team is going to just fly out to the roof, you better run. You better run like Forrest Gump, because that is the sure and fast way to set your team up to fail. It's not an end all be all situation, but that's one way you can start. And when you are able to use guided reflection, so when I do trainings, I often use a lot of exercises and customized activities that walk people through guided reflection, because it takes them through their subconscious, things that are in their conscious and things that are in their subconscious. This is a way to enhance your awareness about yourself and about thinking about why you do the things you do. Maybe you just picked it up because you saw your parents do it, or maybe you saw them do something and you don't want to do something. So enhancing your self-awareness that way are two starting points. And then that's I'll just stop there. So and continue. So your self-awareness, understanding cultural awareness, go on and get yourself some books, man. Get yourself some resources, watch some movies, take an inventory of people within your team. You start that way. Inventory the people within your team and start to learn about their cultures. There's also some things that you can do in terms of mentorship, cultural mentorship. This is something that I definitely recommend and I definitely suggest, because it's giving you more insight, and people love to talk about their cultures. They love to talk about things that they do and their customs and their practices. And then it just gives you a competitive advantage as well when you learn about different people's cultures. So, for example, I mentioned that I'm from the Bahamas, my mom's side, and I'm also from Nigeria on my dad's side, right? So I'm living in the United States. When I go home to the Bahamas, I am so accustomed to the pace of life and the efficiency of things that are done in the United States that when I go to the Bahamas and I'm trying to get something done with that same expectation, guess what? I find myself frustrated. No
Mm-hmm.
one there finds themselves frustrated because that's business as usual. Me,
Mm.
I'm the one coming with business as unusual. So that just leads me right into my next suggestion and recommendation for you. Enhancing self is one, and enhancing I'm sorry, culture.
That's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Enhancing culture is another, and then enhancing your awareness around the industries, the different industries that you're trying to connect with and go into. For example, I've had someone who was working in a government organization, and he worked there for over 35 years. He's now started his own consulting company, and he wants to sell to corporate institutions. But let me tell you something, those are two different types of approaches.
Mm.
So when you are selling and you have been used to selling in government and you understand how things work in government, and there are different layers, different processes, different sort of agreements, and you're now moving into a corporate space and you're trying to sell, the pace is faster, even
Mm-hmm.
down to the marketing materials that you present. If you have been using, standard Microsoft Word, and you haven't been out for 35 years. You've been in your house and it's snowing outside, and you don't know that it's snowing outside, and you step outside without a jacket, you're going to freeze.
Mm.
So if you're moving from another industry and you're trying to sell to a different industry, one size just doesn't fit all. That's awareness of different industries. You just can't use the same approach. You have to be able to understand how things work in that industry. So it's requiring you as a sales professional to do your research.
Mm.
Do your research, spend time researching. One of my colleagues, he is an expert networker. He tells me that on a daily basis, he spends at least 2 hours researching. Researching. You want to make sure that you are researching the people that you're trying to connect with and you're trying to build a relationship with, because guess what? When you leave, if you go in there without any data, without any information, and you're just trying to make a sale and you're trying to wing it, again, this isn't business development, this is relationship development, right? With your communication skills. You
Mm.
leave, someone's outside waiting. The next person is waiting for you to leave, and they are now armed with more information than you, and they've made a better connection. So
Mm.
once again, you lose.
Now, I like one thing you said there, which is if somebody's going into a different industry. But I'm thinking a lot of the listeners on this summit will say, "But I'm in this industry. I've been in the same industry for 5 years, and things are just getting slow and stale. Competition is fierce. I have the research, I have the experience, but I'm still not being able to meet my sales quotas or to connect as strongly as I used to in the past. Now, what can I do given that I am in this particular situation?"
Well, that is a great question. And I'll tell you that if we have the 100% guarantee answer to that, there would be no more need for any sales. You have to acknowledge, I'll put my model here, the AARP, right?
Mm.
Acknowledge, accept, respect, and protect. You have to acknowledge that this is a part of the sales cycle.
Mm.
When you set up your expectations, where you set it up where I've done everything I can and it's just not working, and
Mm.
you give up and you take that mindset. Now we're talking about that self-awareness mindset. Again,
Mm.
I'm reeling this back in because it's very, very important. You
Mm-hmm.
have to get yourself prepared. And I teach this as well. You have to get your mindset prepared, because when you're learning about yourself, this is going to influence how you structure your day. It's going to influence how you get motivated and how you stay motivated.
Mm.
It's going to influence the type of community that you surround yourself with. And as an
Mm.
entrepreneur, I'll tell you right now, you have to make sure that you are in a community of people who are in a similar type of space, especially when you're going through the highs and the lows, because let's just face it, there are highs and there are lows. And when you're talking to people who are outside of what you're experiencing or facing, especially if it's at a low period, they're not going to be able to relate. They're not going to be able to connect. And you're going to feel so lonely and so isolated. So my suggestion there is to get yourself in a very like-minded, positive community where you can all share the same thing. And I'm not even talking about just low stuff. A lot of times we think about these communities like, the AA Anonymous, or you go into a divorce support recovery or trauma recovery when something has gone wrong. 21st century entrepreneurs, sales professionals, sales executives, and sales leaders, they don't form these types of support groups when things are wrong. You are in a support group because you know that it's going to maximize your individual human potential and it's going to increase your level of performance. So you don't think of it as a support groups for something that goes wrong, but it's basically around strategizing. You have mastermind groups, you have brain trust. You don't really think or see this done at a general sales employee level. You see it done at an executive level. I've run masterminds and I've been in masterminds, but this is the new way. Absolutely the new way, because the competition is out there. And let me tell you, man, if you don't have your mindset game up, they will eat your lunch. Okay? So you got to get your mindset up. You have to stay in community. And again, I'm bringing it all the way back to awareness of yourself, awareness of different cultures, awareness of different industries. It all starts with awareness. This is how you're going to position yourself. Now, if you do everything, is it going to be 100% guaranteed? No, nothing in life is 100% guaranteed. Nothing. Accept it. Nothing is a guarantee, but you are going to position yourself better for success. You see, practice doesn't make perfect, but it definitely makes for a better performance.
Please continue.
Yes. So basically, those are the highlighting points I wanted to share with you today in terms of making sure that you have the right mindset when you're enhancing your diversity mindset and you're enhancing your cultural awareness. Those are the critical points, the main takeaways. And I'll just summarize it again for you. Basically, step one, making sure that you enhance your self-awareness. You can look at personality assessments. You can invest in training that actually sets you apart. You're not going to see this. You're going to see a lot of training that focuses a lot on tactics, but we're beyond tactics. Right? We're beyond that. So
it's an inner game thing we're working on right now.
It is an inner game. It's an inner game all the way. And this is something that you will develop as a skill for your life. It's not just a skill for business. It's for your life. You do it, you're going to see everything around you change. I'm talking from experience. When I had started getting coaching, when I started enhancing my self-awareness, I became a better wife. I became a better mother. I became a better daughter. It allowed me to see things in my family and people in my family in different ways, as opposed to me having a one-sided view or a one-sided perspective. So when you are enhancing yourself, your entire environment can change and your business can also change as well. When you're focusing on enhancing your cultural awareness, this is actually fun. And I put it in that order because it's better if you start with yourself and then move into the other elements. You can start to learn about other cultures, but until you address the things within yourself, it's going to be on a little unstable or shaky ground, if you will, because you're just learning about different cultures with this goal in mind, that I'm learning about this culture because they're high context. I'm going to get this business, and it's still very transactional, and we're beyond transactional, right? This is relationship building. This is not just business development. This is relationship building if you're looking for something sustainable. So start with yourself, learn about other people, cultures, because sometimes when you are doing sales, you're actually, if you're being blocked with internal communication, maybe you are approaching someone from a different culture that you have a belief in your mind about, and something inside you triggers, something inside you is feeling uncomfortable, or something inside of you is hesitant, or you are already judging. And I hear a lot of judging. because, oh, this person is from here, so this is how they're going to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of you actually proceeding and keeping an open mind and looking for evidence that you're going to have a successful outcome, right? So start with yourself, start with others. It's really fun, go on ahead and get some different experiences in your toolkit, and you'll definitely see that it'll actually impact your outcomes. So sales mindset, emotional intelligence, diversity mindset, cultural awareness, and definitely the industries. The industries are changing like yesterday. I mean, things from 2 years ago when I worked in the university environment, I can just tell you what I taught then is completely different from what is being taught now. There are always going to be some fundamental principles, but how those principles are delivered, the speed in which they are delivered, and how long they last will often change. So you definitely want to keep up with trends, and that's something that I always recommend and suggest, because there are some industries that are forming that haven't even been formed. I mean, come on, listen. When we were growing up, we were taught not to get in cars with strangers. Okay, now we pay strangers with Uber to drive us places. So things have changed.
We stay in homes of strangers.
We do. Things have changed, and your customers are changing the way they do things. Those are your customers. They're changing the way they do things. And if you're stuck in the past, you're just going to get left behind. So make sure that you always consider that and think about, okay, so what's going on in my industry? How has your industry changed? And don't just stick to your industry. Look at other industries as well.
Yes, because I found that in many different industries, the way they find leaps in terms of their operations or business processes is they actually bring in something that is standard place and standard practice in one industry, and they bring it into their industry, and then that changes the game for them.
I have had much success doing that, because I've been able to work in higher education, I've been able to work in corporate, I've been able to work in government. And so things that I have seen work successfully in other industries, when I see a certain situation, I sit and I think, and I'm like, oh, boom. It just almost comes instantly. And that's the benefit of having a salesperson or a sales professional that is up with trends and that has diverse experiences. So yeah, things definitely are changing. Gone are the days where if you just had longevity in one area, you are an expert. No, people are now saying you're outdated. You don't know what's going on. You haven't had experience in any other industries. And this is not to knock anyone's expertise, not to knock anyone's loyalty, not to knock anyone's hard work and ethic. Because at that time, that is what it was. You worked hard, you did what you needed to do, and you deserve to be acknowledged and rewarded for that. And at the same time, you have to be nimble, you have to be flexible, you have to be adaptable, or you'll just get left behind. Things are changing. It's changing. It's in your face. You just don't have a choice.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Monique, for coming to share about how to develop the diversity mindset, especially in the B2B sales context. But before I let you go, tell us a little bit more about where people can find you, connect you, get to do business with you, and also, do you have any free gift, free offer, free download that can help somebody start learning more about how to implement the things that you've trained us on today?
Yeah, so I am on the internet as Monique Russell, Clear Communication Coach. You could find me on LinkedIn, Clear Communication Coach. My website is Clear Communication Solutions. And if you go to my website, you'll find several things that you can access. So if you go to my website, at the top right, there is a box that has courses that'll take you to my online institute. And there are some free trainings that you can take advantage of. One that is specifically talking about networking and how important that is, and also confidence building. There's a couple of resources there. If you want to get started on emotional intelligence training and that guided reflection that we discussed earlier, you can jump on right in there as well. Or you can just stay on my main website and you can move through how to enhance your communications skills, I have an e-course that runs. It comes to your email inbox. That's also free of charge. But you can definitely find me online. Monique Russell, Clear Communication Coach, Instagram, Clear Communication Coach, Facebook, Clear Communication Coach.
Fantastic. And I'll be sure to put that in the links once this summit is gone live and everything is published. So thanks a lot for coming to teach us a lot more about this topic, Monique. I truly appreciate you coming to share your story, share your wisdom, and of course, help us enhance our own capacities and abilities as we try to connect better across cultures and relationships.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I really enjoyed our chat today.